Hey everybody, Dan with Pain Free You. Today I wanted to talk about this concept of a daily routine, and I often get asked, hey Dan, what's your daily routine? I know you've been symptom free for over a decade. What's your routine? So, get to that in a minute. We'll cover that. Smile. Slow your breath. Drop your shoulders loosey-goosey. Let the body decompress, relax, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call it. But just drop your shoulders. So Dan, what's your daily routine? And in many cases it's to stay pain-free. And in many other cases, if you're not pain or symptom free yet, a lot of people are saying, what should my daily routine be? And so let's tackle these two different ways. My daily routine for keeping symptoms away is nothing. I don't have a daily routine regarding TMS, mind-body conditions, perceived danger pain. I have no daily routine in that regard. I have a deep knowing that if symptoms come up, I'm going to be able to recognize them. A deep knowing that I will not fall into panic if I get some discomfort in my back or elsewhere. A deep knowing that I don't have to be terribly concerned about it. Now look, I will use discretion, and if something feels significant, catastrophic, life-threatening, I'm going to go get checked out. Certainly, that makes sense. But barring that, I can respond pretty confidently because I've got so much experience with this personally, as well as teaching this and interacting and coaching and learning from all of you folks. I can respond confidently with what I call a deep knowing. That's when you take the intellectual textbook knowledge, video knowledge, podcast knowledge, and it goes from intellectual to wisdom. A deep knowing, I call it. Oftentimes I refer to that as the aha moment, the oh shit moment. Holy shit, I'm actually okay. That's a kind of a deep knowing where you really get it at a deep level. So with that deep knowing, I don't need a daily routine. I just don't. Because if symptoms show up, as they do, not often, but every once in a while, I'll recognize it, I'll call it out, I'll give it the amount of fear and attention that it warrants, which is 0. And I get on with my day. Sometimes I'll check in with my emotions, stress, what's going on in my life, and I'll say, yep, makes sense. I'll allow myself to experience whatever stress or emotions are going on. And I get back to living life. So I don't have a daily routine. I do have a default response, which ensures pretty well that no sensations that I experience become chronic or persistent. So I have a default response, and I think that's different than a daily routine. I don't believe we need to do 30 minutes of this, an hour of that, in order to stay symptom-free from mind-body condition. When you get to that deep knowing, that holy crap moment, I'm really okay, what are we working on? Why are we spending time fixing or preventing when in fact, if symptoms show up, they don't have to become persistent because we don't have to panic like we used to, and we can call it out for what it is and then move on with our day, and symptoms go away within minutes, hours. Worst case scenario for me was days, and that was right in the middle of my mom having a stroke. 10 days of back pain. Didn't panic, didn't freak, knew what it was, allowed it to be there. 0 fear, 0 attention, focused on helping my mom get through stroke recovery, with my siblings, of course. I wasn't doing it alone. And the back pain left when it was ready to. But I gave it little fear or attention. So, if you are already feeling well, you don't need a daily routine. A default response would be cool. One that says, you know what that is. Not bothered by it. Not concerned. Let me shift back. Living life, right? So, what's your daily routine if you're still on the journey, right? And there are different types of people. I still believe everything I just said about the deep knowing is really key, even while you still have symptoms, because that deep knowing will help neutralize a lot of the fear and help you shift your attention away to engaging in life. But some people may do better with a routine. And I just spoke about, making time for self-care. And I think self-care is really a good thing to do. That's not fixing. It's not doing that to eliminate symptoms. It's doing that because we deserve to care for ourselves and do things for ourselves, whatever that may be. But some people feel like, I like or I enjoy meditating. I never did. I always did it as a means to an end. I wanted to get a benefit out of meditating, so every time I tried it, I'd be in my head thinking, is this going to work? Am I doing it right? Shouldn't I have a still brain? Why am I doing this? I spend 30 minutes meditating, immediately go, did it work? No, it didn't. Darn it, I'm not doing it right. Go back to Barnes & Noble, because I was doing this before the internet, search for meditation books and anything along the topic. And I was always trying to fix meditation, breath work. Very little information on somatics at the time, and even if there was, I wasn't aware of it, so I didn't know the benefits. And so I was stuck in a fixing mode, always doing stuff to fix. Now these days, there's an infinite number of practices, protocols, limbic system that, vagal nerve this, nervous system regulation that, and there's tons of processes and practices out there, and many of them are valuable. But do you need a 4-hour routine to go through every day? I think there's a counterproductive aspect to that the more you're doing to get rid of symptoms, the more you're teaching the brain, I got a big problem. Look at how hard I'm working on fixing this problem. So there gets to be a point where beneficial things become somewhat of a roadblock, because the brain can't determine, are we okay, like you're trying to convey, or are we in trouble because you're spending an hour, 2, 4, 5 hours a day? So there are practitioners and programs out there that absolutely recommend an hour minimum or longer in order to get better. And I think the sooner you can get to that deep knowing of understanding the system, accepting that this mind-body stuff applies to you, the sooner you can convey safety to your brain. Now, if you are uncertain, what should your top priority be? Try to gain certainty and clarity. Because without that, it's really tough to teach the brain that I'm okay if you were to be asked, hey, are you okay? And you go, I don't know. I think I might be, but I'm not sure. So if you're unclear, do your best to get clear. Read the book, watch my Fast Start playlist, and the very first video explains what creates symptoms, pain or otherwise. There's an assessment. Download that at painfreeyou.com. Now, I know it seems a little bit nebulous that I can help people out by learn, do an assessment, and then follow a process, but it's working exceptionally well. Go to painfreeyousuccess.com. I think it's 117 success stories now. Read the book reviews on Amazon, painfreeyoubook.com. Read the book reviews, 219 book reviews, 97% are 5-star and the other 3% are 4-star. This stuff is working for people, and it's not as complex as you think. It's hard. Don't get me wrong. This stuff is really hard because we're dealing with fear, and sometimes fear over symptoms that have been around a really long time. Months, years, sometimes decades. So I'm not saying this is easy, but the concepts are pretty straightforward. Dangers, creating symptoms, and once we understand it, we can convey safety consistently enough with credibility, and that will absolutely help you minimize symptoms and minimize fear and shift our attention away and learn to respond better and teach our brain that Even our thoughts, we don't have to believe the scary, dark ones. We don't have to believe them. We don't have to fix them or stop them. Emotionally, we can teach our brain that emotions are safe. If our brain turns on symptoms in regard to emotions, as Sarno taught, we can still teach the brain that emotions are safe by feeling them without judgment, without rumination on the story behind the symptoms, right? Mental, emotional, physical safety. Smile, relaxed body, breathing slowly. Slow your thoughts, slow your speech, slow your movements, slow your breath. These things convey physical safety. And there are processes that can teach you even that physical movements or body positions are safe. 6 steps to resume activity. Search YouTube, pain-free you, the number 6, and you'll find it. And it's also in my book. How we respond to symptoms conveys safety. If you panic every time you notice a new sensation or an existing one goes up a little bit, what are you teaching? You're teaching the brain that these symptoms are dangerous. If you can respond, kind of like I was saying in the beginning of the video, with, I know what that is, not worried about it, little fear, little attention, ideally 0, and then get back to living life, you're conveying safety. So how you respond to symptoms is massive, right? How do you treat yourself? Always judgmental, self-critical? That's not a message of safety. As a matter of fact, it feels like you're being attacked all the time, but it's coming from the person in the mirror. And so one thing that I've talked about in today's group call is, for anybody who's struggling with treating themselves well, ask yourself, if I had a twin, would I ever speak to the twin the way I talk to myself up here? And the answer every time I've posed that question is, oh no, never. I would never tell anybody in my life or anybody the things I tell myself and judge about myself. So maybe it's a nice exercise to say, all right, if you're going to say horrible things about yourself, stand in front of the mirror and try to do it. You're probably not going to be able to get the words out, because now you've got accountability with the person in the mirror, and you're less likely to beat yourself up if you have to look at yourself in the mirror. Useful tip. And then start to engage more and more in real life. Now, I'm not saying go run a marathon or do everything and anything, regardless of your fear, regardless of your symptoms. Sometimes we got to ease into it. So I just literally walked you through the entire process. But do you need a daily routine, or are all of those things that I just walked you through things that you can just do throughout the course of the day if your brain's getting your attention and symptoms are getting your attention? It's not a structured do this for 30 minutes type of process. It's more than a to-do list. It's more of a let me create a default response, a way of being, right? It's who you become in this process that gives you lasting results. It's not doing a to-do list 42 days in a row perfectly. No, because if you're doing that with the intention of I need to fix, and if symptoms come up, we still fall into a panic default response. Have you really learned it, or are you going through the motions? And I'm not judging anybody who feels like I'm going through the motions. But see if you can get to the point of clarity where you just know, deep knowing, intellectually, I got the concepts, but man, I really know this. Because that's where I'm at. And my default response is, okay, a little bit of back pain, a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of tightness. So what? Whatever. Indifference. And in my case, that deep knowing and my default response will last me a lifetime. Can do the same for you. Look for reasons to believe that you're okay, not reasons to fear you are not. The brain believes what you think and say most often. The brain believes your dominant thought. Make it a good one. So, I'm going to wrap it up here. Love you, folks. If you're not yet a subscriber on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. Like this. Share it with other people if you know somebody who could benefit by this type of content. And as always, I love you folks, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care.